Hello and welcome back to another episode of It's Always Sunny in Hollywood, where today we're gonna get a little weird, a little surreal. I am Lugia,
A
and
little
with me are...
Lynchian.
That's one way to put it. Why don't you two introduce yourselves?
I'm Drum Arts. I'm Red. Yeah, just call me Red. That's better.
I am Patty, and I'll pass on carving the chicken.
Today we're going to be talking about David Lynch's debut film, Eraserhead. Now, we're no stranger when it comes to David Lynch as a director. We've talked about Blue Velvet and Wild at Heart here on this show. But I believe for all three of us, this is our first time watching Eraserhead, unless I'm mistaken.
Yeah, I think none of us have seen it before.
Yeah, no, my only experience with David Lynch is only through this podcast.
Fair enough. We don't have any news, right? We're just going to jump straight into it.
Yep.
All right, so Eraserhead was directed, produced, and written by David Lynch. It was released on March 19th of 1977. It had a budget of about $100,000 and it made over $7 million. So this was big, especially for a debut film. That's impressive. So I got a couple fun facts here about Eraserhead, not too much though. So David Lynch, originally he was going to be a painter. He wanted to be like some sort of like surreal artist, but then his focus switched over to film and he kind of incorporated his artistry into his films. For Eraserhead, he drew inspiration from the Metamorphosis from Franz Kafka and the Nose from Nikolai Gogol. I'm not familiar with the latter, but I've definitely read the former before, and that one gets pretty weird. Lynch also used part of the Bible as inspiration for Eraserhead, and by that I mean he just opened up the book, looked at a verse, and said, yeah, I'm putting that in the film. He does not remember if it was from the Old or the New Testament. And also, fun fact, when asked in an interview, he said that Eraserhead was his most spiritual film, and when he was asked to elaborate on that, he responded, no. So, chances are, if you know of Eraserhead, you know of the baby. This was a way for David Lynch to like kind of write down his fear of fatherhood because he was a new father by the time Eraserhead came out, and his daughter had a birth defect in her foot. So that was kind of a way for him to express that.
It's
And
also just kind of like drawing on like general fears in his life, because I know we talked about this a little bit in the Blue Velvet episode too, but he grew up in the nice clean suburbs, but in adulthood he moved to West Philadelphia,
yeah, and
which
it was like a crime-ridden, shitty neighborhood.
yeah, I mean Will Smith had to run away from there because he just pissed off one guy.
And last is that Eraserhead was selected for the National Film Registry by the Library of Congress in 2004, marking it as a very important film in general. So that's what I got for Eraserhead. There's probably a lot more, but we're just going to keep it nice and concise. So what is Eraserhead about? Where do I start? Okay, so we have this man named Henry who had an affair with a girl named Mary. They find out that Mary's pregnant and they have to take care of a child. Their relationship struggles, and then Henry just gets a bunch of weird dreams about a girl with puffy cheeks stepping on sperm and a whole other shit from there. So that's the best way I could put it. So what did we think?
Actually, I want Red to start because before we started filming this, he said he didn't have a lot to say, and that surprised me given how much you usually have to say, especially about David Lynch. So I want you to start.
I feel like a lot of like David Lynch's stuff, there's like generally I feel like a lot of the confusion just comes from the fact that he's sort of mixing a lot of surrealist imagery with and he's trying to fit it into a more conventional narrative. But here, this is just a tone poem. So I feel like it's ironically kind of easier to understand just because like you can kind of get it. Like yeah, it's for the most part just trying to like create this uncomfortable texture, this industrial texture. It kind of reminds me of Tetsuo the Iron Man, if any of you've seen that. Though that one's a lot more frantic. This one's a lot more trying to settle people into the atmosphere. But it's just kind of a tone poem, just about this like uncomfortable imagery. While you can sort of piece together, he has these general anxieties about fatherhood and whatnot, and obviously what those fears more specifically are. Maybe it's because like it's not sort of a traditional narrative. Like
Yeah, when you look at
it's
something
a
like
lot
Blue
easier.
Velvet, there's like a clear antagonist that we're trying to stop.
like it's kind of weird to describe. It's just like the fact that there's no clear narrative. It almost makes it just easier because you just know that okay, I just need to sit back and just let it wash over me. With other stuff, you're trying to kind of piece together like what parts you need to let wash over and what parts you kind of need to be more little because his other movies kind of work on like two levels. When here it's, I mean, it's very layered, but it's very clearly like ironically straightforward. So yeah, I just kind of feel like I don't have a lot to say because it's just sort of like I think this is just sort of a movie you just need to watch, experience, let it wash over you, maybe watch again. But there's nothing like really like a person can say that really like illuminates more. And obviously, there's like some clear like nuclear concerns. I don't know if when was Chernobyl? Was that before or after this?
That was after.
Okay. Huh. Interesting. Obviously, there's like a lot of like kind of nuclear bomb imagery just because of his hair, but also just like again the very industrial sort of setting. It's a very evokes images of factories and plants and power plants and whatnot. Not grass plants, power plants. To be clear, that's what I meant. I think it's interesting how even though this movie is much more abstract and loose with its kind of like plotting, it still like establishes a lot of like kind of like narrative tropes with David Lynch, particularly kind of like the two women sort of thing. Like because again we talked about Blue Velvet here, and like they had the more demure kind of girl, and then also like the more femme fatale seductress. And like I feel like almost all of his movies kind of have like this sort of like duality with like women sort of thing. And since he mentioned the Bible, maybe it had something to do with like Lilith and Eve.
I assume he went to heaven in the end or something like that. That part I'm still like a little confused about. But I think that's probably just enlightenment of being free from fatherhood.
Some of the planetary imagery kind of threw me off. Like there's a lot of like space kind of stuff.
Like the guy with the lever who's like in the planet.
Pulls the lever, and then sperm falls out.
I'm always wondering if that's trying to like evoke imageries of like viruses almost, because like you know how like viruses like inject stuff into people, right? Very phallic. I don't know. And obviously, in the opening shot, like he opens his mouth and basically like a giant sperm comes out, and then there's like planet stuff. So like I guess the space imagery loses me a little bit. This is what the '70s, so it was after the moon landing. So I don't know, there's some phallic imagery of the rockets, I guess. But
Well, how about you, Patty? Since you're the least familiar of David Lynch out of all of us.
So I will say, at least for me, compared to the other David Lynch movies I've seen, this was the easiest one to sit through. There was no random scene that made me really uncomfortable. That could be a deterrent for you if
it's
what?
funny you say that because like I would say the whole movie's uncomfortable. It's just I guess you just kind of just get used to it because it just
He's
immediately hits you instead
desensitized
of
by
like
this point.
yeah. I
I
think it
guess.
just. Well, I would argue like I do think it's true, but I think it's just because like it immediately just kind of like throws you in the deep end compared to like say Blue Velvet, which
Okay.
almost kind of lures you with like a false sense of security, and then Dennis Hopper shows up, and you're like, what the hell did I get myself into? And
Okay,
here you're
Blue
just kind of
Velvet,
like,
I get. What was it about Wild at Heart that put you off? Was it Willem Dafoe?
It might have been him. My memory's a bit fuzzy again. I only saw the movie once, like 2 years ago. But there's a scene in a hotel where I think Willem Dafoe's character comes in and he touches a woman.
yeah,
You know
okay.
what? Fair enough.
Yeah, I see that's kind of fair because like Blue Velvet and Wild at Heart, it kind of starts off these kind of almost happy, almost like romance type flicks, and then you slowly get like shown, not even like slow. I mean, there's like a slow kind of like creepy atmosphere, but like for the most part, the pivot to this dark thing is very jarring. But the Eraserhead, I don't know, I was like freaked out from the beginning, so like it kind of like
I
didn't
wouldn't
have
call
that
it.
same.
I wouldn't call this movie uncomfortable. I just call it very odd, like
Sur-
off. Like there's something.
surreal.
Yeah. But aside from comparing it on its own merits, I gotta be honest. I don't think I've ever seen a movie that made me go, "Huh?" more than this one.
And
Like I
that's
get
fair.
this. I get that Henry's conflict is that he's stressed about being a parent. I have no clue how 90% of the rest of the movie connects to that. Like the odd mannerisms of Mary's family and some of the later sequences near the end of the film.
I always thought it was interesting how David Lynch's first movie is his most experimental and like difficult to parse, or not difficult to parse, but like just most like it's the one that's gonna make you say "huh" the most. All of his
Like
other stuff is kind of more clear. It's kind of like ironic. I don't know.
like for a while I was given all the space imagery and stuff and the fact that the baby is an alien. I was like, is he secretly an alien? Is Mary's family, are they aliens?
I don't
Because
think the
they're kind of
baby is an
weird.
alien.
That was another thing I was thinking. Is the baby just a regular baby and we just see it as an alien?
Well, it's
Give
clear
off
that
how
Mary's
otherworldly
family
it
is
feels.
fucked up, so I think the baby also looking fucked up has something to do with it.
Obviously, if you know the behind the scenes, you know how Lynch's daughter had like a birth defect. I think it's more of
Yeah.
just like paranoia that this your kid is it's sort of just a reminder of like the sort of fragility of it, and how and maybe worries about how other people are gonna see her when she grows up, things like that.
I guess, but
But yeah,
it's interesting to me how the first half, the first act of this movie and the third act of this movie are really fucking weird, while the middle section where it's him looking after the alien baby is the most normal the movie gets. Like it's just them in the apartment over one night. You get a
just
few
me and my fucked up
odd,
baby.
yeah, you have a few odd sequences, but it's the least weird part of the movie, and it feels strange to explain. When the
Yeah.
fucking alien baby shows up, oh yeah, the movie's fine.
Are you familiar with Kafka's The Metamorphosis?
I
No,
think we've read that in high school.
Yeah,
I didn't.
we talked about it during the Nobody episode also, just because that has a similar illusion. That the baby part kind of reminded me of like Kafka's Metamorphosis, because that's about a dude who wakes up and he's suddenly turned into a giant cockroach. Like it's this weird kind of surreal atmosphere, but there's also kind of like a mundanity to it, where you're just like, ah, shit, how am I gonna get to work? This thing is here is like, oh, I got this like fucked up alien baby, but like at the same time, it's like, well, I still need to like take care of it like a regular ass baby, so it is what it is.
I did like how the baby was portrayed, like the animatronic and stuff and the texture. I was very
I
impressed.
don't know if they ever
Yeah.
revealed like how they made the baby look the way it did. Like I heard rumors of like Lynch using like a rabbit, but I don't think that's true.
I know.
Regardless,
So earlier, I think I mentioned like the duality element with it. I thought the Eraser Baby. I feel like he kind of reiterated some ideas on that in Elephant Man, which I think was his next movie, because that's also about like kind of a deformed guy, and like I don't know. I feel like it's just this general like. I feel like Lynch has like this kind of interest in like I don't know. I guess being sensitive to the deformed in a way. I don't know if that's like the right way of saying it, but like there's like a fear element, but I don't know. There's also like a gentleness. I don't know if I'm describing it right. So hard to articulate a Lynch movie, but like I'm just saying, I think there's a through line with this and his next movie, The Elephant Man. And if you're familiar with The Elephant Man, that's just about kind of like it's based on a true story, but yeah, it's about this kind of like deformed guy at a freak show, and like I don't know, just him finally getting some sort of appreciation in his life. I don't know, reminds of Edward Scissorhands kind of, but yeah.
So I'm not expecting an answer, but I was a little confused about some parts of the dream sequences, mainly the longest one that we see after the neighbor and Henry like sink into the bed, where
is that the one where his head falls off?
his head falls off, it gets replaced by the baby, and then his head sinks into the floor, into the real world. The kid picks it up, brings it over to a pencil factory, and they use the head to make eraser heads. I don't understand that.
You're forgetting the most amazing line delivery. Okay, Paul. Yeah, no.
So is that why it's called Eraserhead and not the fact that Henry's hair just makes it look like an eraser?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that's why.
Okay. But like what does that mean to be an Eraserhead? Fragile?
Oh.
Use too much? You get burned out? Or rubbed out?
Who knows?
I mean, there's probably an answer somewhere, but I feel like it's a lot better if you try to discover the meaning for yourself. Even if it might not be right, it still gives you something to think about.
I like how there's also a lot of dirt in this movie, and I was confused about that. Like Henry has like a pile of dirt slash hay in his apartment, and in the
Next to a
beginning,
heater, which is a fucking fire hazard.
that was another thing I was thinking. Like, all right, like alien baby, it kind of looks like a worm. Are they secretly worms?
No, they're sperm.
Well, I'm not. I don't. I'm not trying to like understand it on like a literal level. I'm just trying to like.
Like, I'm not literally trying to understand it. I'm just trying to like what the connection could be.
Also, why does he have like a
Yeah.
pot of water with coins in a drawer? Like why in the drawer? Like you could have it on top of a nightstand, but like you have it in a drawer that you have to open up, like slide open, and then you put the coins in. Like what the fuck? This guy's insane.
I'm more concerned about the fact that the clock in Mary's house doesn't have a minute's hand.
Oh yeah.
How do you know what time it is?
Oh, the worm thing might be because of they have a lot of sperm like imagery. So I think the child is meant to like almost be kind of like a giant sperm in a way.
That would make
Well,
sense.
after the moon space sperm imagery at the beginning, that was a series of words that came out of my mouth. Um, there's a shot of leaving the blackness of space into the light, and it almost looks like a hole in the ground, like a worm coming out of it, maybe.
I feel like like a lot of like kind of worm-like imagery is just sort of like just keep this sort of like sexual imagery in it because this movie is very uncomfortable, but I feel like it's very clearly like the main character is clearly terrified and fascinated by sex, which is again I think that's like a recurring theme, again in Blue Velvet, and there's the girl next door, but there's also kind of like the other lady. It's a bit more. Again, I feel like this has a lot like in connection with Blue Velvet because this also has like the person singing that song, like the diegetic, yeah, in heaven, and then like it kind of reminds me of how like some of the musical stuff is like done in Blue Velvet and whatnot. I will say since we're on sound, what did you guys think of just like the general sound design?
The sound
Because I
design is
felt like that,
amazing.
yeah, I thought that added like a real nice kind of like unnerving atmosphere, very like Silent Hill like almost, where like it's just kind of like this uncomfortable kind of like
Like it's not meant to
I'm pretty
scare
sure,
you, it's just meant to unsettle you.
yeah, just unnerve you. And I like how like it's constant. Like there isn't a silent moment in the movie. There's always just like a low level.
Apparently, it took a year to get all the audio for this film.
I mean, it took like a this movie was like a long took like 5 years to make in general, just because
Yeah.
like they kept running out of funding. And then Mel Brooks saw it, and he was like, "This is amazing. I'm gonna help David Lynch get money in the future."
Going back to like things that were weird, the chicken scene. What the fuck? So we've already said that Mary's family is strange, and that's putting it lightly. But when the chicken is like served for dinner, it starts moving when Henry tries to cut it, and then the mom has an orgasm. Also, the father. Okay, I actually really like this about the father. When he asks Henry, like, "So, what do you know?" And then Henry's like, "Well, I don't know much, sir." And then the father just stares at Henry for like a flat minute with this big ass smile. He doesn't move at all. He just stares at him, and it's so funny.
Kind of reminds me of like Buffalo '66, kind of like in a sort of dark comedy sort of way. The Lady of the Radiator thing was kind of interesting to me. I don't know what you guys think of that scene in particular.
A lot of the
I
scenes, like with her, like just confused me.
I feel like after a while, like once you start smashing like the sperm creatures or whatever you want to call them, I feel like that kind of like because like that's like a sex and like kid image. Like part of me was thinking like it was like maybe like a postpartum depression type thing. Like how
Like
people want to like
her,
kind of kill their kids after. Although obviously the main character is like a man, so
I mean,
I
her
don't know if
stepping
I
on the sperms, like I get that. That makes sense. But everything else after that, where she sings "In Heaven" and like takes Henry, like at the end of the film, I didn't get that.
it's just kind of like acceptance, like because like again like with the postpartum like kind of interpretation, like I guess it's almost like Henry's like manifesting his own fears or whatever of like it. So like I guess so that's kind of like what I was thinking. Like maybe I don't know. And then like that's kind of like an acceptance thing, I guess at the end.
But he kills the baby.
Yeah, like I don't know. It's like an intrusive thought thing, accepting that maybe the baby's evil. I don't know. There's lots of ways to interpret it. I'm approaching it from more of like an intrusive thought, kind of like postpartum depression type thing, where like you're not evil for that, but yeah. Just because I assume David Lynch had a good relationship with his kids. I'm pretty sure he didn't abuse them or anything. So yeah, a lot to chew on. I'll definitely be revisiting this movie at one point.
Yeah, we all
So
liked
yeah,
it, right? Just getting it out
that's
there.
it. It's a recommendation for me. Yeah, even if like I didn't like it, I feel like it's almost like categorized like Clockwork Orange, or like I feel like you just need to see it at least once in your life just to like for the
Experience it.
experience. Yeah.
It is definitely an interesting movie. Like it will keep your attention. And it's also only 90 minutes, so it's not taking too much of your time.
Yeah. So
Recommend all around.
yep, recommendations all around. I've mentioned, obviously this is kind of like a Rosetta Stone for Lynch. If you're a Lynch fan and you haven't seen it, definitely check it out because it honestly kind of makes some of his other movies a lot more clear to me. And in terms of like other movies like it that you may like, it's I'd say Tetsuo the Iron Man, just because that has like a very similar kind of like industrial setting. That one's a lot more frenetic, which might make it easier or harder to watch depending on the type of person you are. But yeah, next week, what are we talking about?
Right, Patty, that's you.
Yes, that's me. So we've gone through our horror recommendations. It is February now. I mean, it is November now,
February,
but it's November.
bro.
Sorry, it's November. So we can move past the horror for now. Let's talk about something much more, I don't want to say digestible, though that is an appropriate word. I guess cozy, you could say. Something that evokes a bit of childhood nostalgia, I guess.
You also mean tonal whiplash.
Sure, I guess. But I don't know. This is a movie that I think is pretty appropriate for November, and I don't really have much else of an intro. So up next, we are going to talk about the Peanuts movie.
The new one?
From
Yeah,
Oh,
the
okay.
2015 one.
2010s? 2015.
Yeah.
Cool. Okay.
I don't know. I feel like
Unless
Peanuts is an appropriate like wintertime thing. Like not definitively Christmas, but like, within that fall to winter type of area.
for next movie is released in the 90s, we would have done a movie from every decade for the last for the last like last 5 movies we've done a movie from a different decade. The only decade we haven't covered yet is the 90s. I'm like, huh, that's kind of funny. Like from the 60s to now.
All right, so next week we'll be talking about the Peanuts movie. Thank you for watching or listening or however you view this podcast. And until next time,
Yes.
I don't have a way to end this, so we're just going to end it.